Chapter 1071. Without spiritual power to protect the body, relying solely on the tyranny of the flesh, it is still difficult to resist Long Xiao's blow. After all, Long Xiao is also near the peak of Wuzong's strength. David's mouth was bleeding, and his chest was sunken, and a trace of blood slowly flowed out along his chest. David looked around and found that there were 5 bloody finger holes in his chest. Looking at Long Xiao again, he was smug at the moment, and in Long Xiao's hand, 5 black thorns glowed coldly in the sunlight. David, even if you are working hard, it's useless. I only need one magic weapon to wipe you out, and there are many such magic tools in our Long family. Long Xiao held a copper bell in his hand, and the corner of his mouth evoked a sneer, and now you've fallen for my free attack fan, I can crush you with just one finger. David looked at Long Xiao's smug look, the spiritual power in his body rushed towards the wound quickly, and he began to repair the wound quickly. As for what Long Xiao said, David didn't care. His body hundreds of poisons do not invade, so this scattered attack powder is useless. Soon, David's injuries recovered, but the power of the dragon in his body was not affected at all. You are too confident. David's aura suddenly burst, and the terrifying aura surrounded Long Xiao in an instant. Long Xiao's expression changed. Your skill hasn't been dissipated. You want to use this despicable method to win me, but unfortunately you are wrong. The dragon-slaying sword in David's hand was raised again, ready to stab Long Xiao with a sword. Seeing this, Long Xiao hurriedly rang the copper bell again. The melodious bell rang again, followed by a breathtaking force. David's whole body instantly glowed with golden light, and a light mask surrounded David. The sound wave was directly blocked and did not affect David. Seeing this, Long Xiao hurriedly accelerated the shaking of the copper bell, which kept ringing, but David was not affected at all. On the stand, many people couldn't stand this kind of sound, and they all fell into sluggishness. Seeing that David was not affected, Long Xiao had no choice but to throw the copper bell in his hand towards the sky. From the copper bell, a quaint and old atmosphere slowly permeated. Feeling this breath, David's face became solemn. At this moment, Chen Sheng's feet fell, and his entire calf fell directly into the ground. This breath suppressed David like a mountain. David did not dare to neglect, the power of the dragon was fully displayed, and the golden light shone on his body, resisting this quaint and old atmosphere. I'll see what else you can do now. Seeing David being restrained by the copper bell, Long Xiao couldn't help roaring, and a long sword was instantly transformed into his hand. Long Xiao pointed the long sword towards the copper bell, and a blue light directly shone on the copper bell, and then the copper bell began to press towards David. The killing power in the copper bell constantly suppressed David's body. Even though David has brought his undamaged golden body to the extreme, there are still shocking wounds on his body. Artifacts are artifacts, and they are truly extraordinary. When Long Jingguo saw Long Xiao sacrifice the divine weapon, his expression couldn't help but relax. He knew that even if David had great ability, he would not be able to resist the attack of this artifact. Is this the dragon's artifact? It's really extraordinary. Zhu Zishan looked at the terrifying copper bell in midair with envy and greed in his eyes. I didn't expect that the Long family really has artifacts, but Long Xiao said that there are many such artifacts in their Long family. I don't know if it's true. Guo Wei said solemnly. If this is the case, then the Long family is likely to replace them all, and the Long family will be the leader of the Kyoto martial arts world. Chapter 1072. Bragging, Zhu Zishan snorted disdainfully. If the Long family had so many artifacts, then Long Jingguo would have been arrogant, and would be so polite to you and me. That's true. Guo Wei nodded. With the temperament of Long Jingguo, if the Long family really had so many artifacts, Long Jingguo would have been pointing fingers at the Kyoto martial arts world long ago. Rumbling. The copper bell pressed towards David's body. The killing energy was like countless sharp knives, constantly shooting fire on David's body, and some left a deep wound. David held the dragon-slaying sword in his hand, the spiritual power in his body exploded, and he slashed towards the copper bell with a fierce sword. The domineering sword chi seems to have opened a gap in the entire space, but when this sword chi touches the copper bell, it directly vanishes. This sword has not been able to stop the suppression of the copper bell at all. David, it's useless, this is an artifact of the Long family, you can't resist it. Long Xiao looked at David with grim eyes. Originally, he thought that he could easily win the battle with David, but he didn't want David's strength to exceed his imagination. Is this also worthy of being called a divine weapon? David gritted his teeth, the power of the dragon in his body erupted, and then a dragon roar resounded through the sky, and David slashed out again with one sword. I saw a golden dragon emitting a breathtaking dragon roar, heading towards the copper bell. Boom! The golden light radiated and the golden dragon disappeared, but the copper bell did not suffer any damage, not even a stagnation. Ha ha ha! I said, you don't have to waste your energy, you should just die obediently. If you kneel and kowtow to me now, I may be able to spare you with a kind heart. Long Xiao sneered and looked at David playfully. David ignored him, and the power of the dragon in his body surged up again. However, this time, the power of the dragon in the body was not controlled by David, but directly into the dragon crystal in David's body. Soon, the golden light on David's body became half fiery red and half icy blue, and David's body slowly became transparent, so transparent that even the bones in the body could be seen clearly. What is that? Some people found that in David's body, a spherical object was emitting light. This spherical object was half fiery red and half ice blue, so David's entire body was mapped like this. Long Jing, is that Long Jing swallowed by David? No, how could Long Jing be like this? How could there be two colors? Look, that copper bell has been moved. Some people found that the copper bell, which was originally suppressed by David, stopped moving under the illumination of this two-color light. Long Xiao also seemed to have noticed something was wrong. With panic on his face, the long sword in his hand pointed at the copper bell, and a blue light shot out. Repression. The copper bell made a rumbling sound and began to turn rapidly. But no matter how the copper bell spun, he was not thinking that David was getting closer. At this moment, David's body became transparent and illusory, as if he had suddenly become invisible, and then the two-color dragon crystal slowly flew out of David's body. In an instant, the light emitted by the two-color dragon crystal was even compared to the sun. Everyone only felt a vast, C-sharp aura emanating from the dragon crystal. A dragon roar sounded, and everyone covered their ears involuntarily. Immediately after, a colorful light hit the rotating copper bell. Wow! At this moment, the copper bell was like a fragile glass, and it shattered with a slight touch. Chapter 1073. Everyone was dumbfounded when they looked at the broken copper bell. Is this still an artifact? An artifact that was easily destroyed like this? The killing energy disappeared, and Long Jing instantly returned to David's body, and the light disappeared without a trace. There was silence all around. Everyone looked at everything in front of them in disbelief. Someone was constantly swallowing saliva and breathing heavily. At this moment, all eyes fell on David. The treasure on David's body is much more than we know. Zhu Zishan's eyes were fiery, looking at David as if he saw a beautiful woman. On the surrounding stands, many people began to look at David with greedy eyes. But at this moment, David ignored these greedy eyes, and looked at Long Xiao with cold eyes. This time, let me see what cards you have. David said it, the dragon-slaying sword in his hand burst out with killing intent, and then the sword was cut out. Seeing this, Long Xiao was so frightened that he turned his head and ran away. At this moment, he no longer cared about his face or shame. The strength David showed completely shattered his remaining fighting spirit. Shoo! With the sword cut out, a deep blood mark appeared on Long Xiao's back instantly. After a stagger, Long Xiao fell to the ground. David put away the dragon-slaying sword and directly picked up Long Xiao. This is the eldest young master of the Long family, but so. Let's just say, David slapped it, and Long Xiao's face was instantly swollen. Admit defeat, and then teach me how to bark. After David slapped Long Xiao, he said slowly. David's words surprised everyone. They didn't expect that David would not give up after defeating Long Xiao, and there was such a humiliation. Is this to forge a deadly revenge with the Long family? David, don't be complacent, I am. Snapped. Before Long Xiao could finish speaking, David slapped it with a slap. David, I. Snapped. With another slap, Long Xiao's face was deformed. Stop, stop me. Long Jingguo stood up abruptly, the murderous aura rising from his body. Patriarch Long, this is Bai Lei, do you want to break the rules? Seeing this, Zhao Waoqi directly asked Long Jingguo loudly. He was afraid that Long Jingguo would suddenly attack David. Fkook your mother's rules. Long Jingguo watched his son be beaten like a dead dog, so who cares about that? But just when Long Jingguo wanted to move, suddenly the auras of two peaks of martial arts pressed towards him. Dong Jiahao sneered, patriarch of the dignified Long family, wouldn't it be shameful to think that the father and son would join forces to fight against one person? Dong Jiahao, it's none of your business here. Our two wells don't cause river water, so get out of here. Long Jingguo's eyes narrowed slightly, his body full of murderous aura. Damn, old man, you are old, I respectfully call you the head of the dragon family, you dare to scold me, believe it or not, I will pacify your dragon family. Dong Jiahao is not afraid of Long Jingguo. Although he is not strong, he has the Dong family behind him and his father to support him. You wanna die? Long Jingguo was going to be pissed off. In front of so many people, Dong Jiahao, the younger generation, dared to scold him as an old man. Seeing that Long Jingguo was about to make a move, Dong Jiahao brought the two Peak Wuzong powerhouses and immediately protected Dong Jiahao behind him. The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became tense, and the war was about to break out. All stop. Seeing this, Zhu Zishan could only speak. If the two sides really fight, the movement will be big, and the world will be turned upside down. As the leader of the Martial Arts Alliance, he can't explain it to Mr. Shi. When the official comes forward and bans their martial arts alliance, it will not be worth the loss. Go back and sit down for me, do you think I don't exist? Zhu Zishan's face turned cold, his aura spread out, and the expressions of several people on the scene became ugly, and then sat back obediently. Chapter 1074. David on the other side has already beaten Long Xiao into a pig's head. Do you admit defeat? Do you admit defeat? Every time David asked a question, he slapped Long Xiao hard in the face. At this time, Long Xiao was about to cry but had no tears, his face was swollen like a pig's head, his mouth was speechless, how could he admit defeat? Long Xiao could only nod his head desperately, but David didn't seem to see it. Aren't you very arrogant? Isn't your Long family very arrogant? Today I will kill your arrogance. What kind of thing is your Long family, you are all robbers. David scolded while fighting, which almost made Long Jingguo in the stands annoyed to death. Seeing that Long Xiao was almost beaten, David's eyes flashed fiercely, and then golden light flashed on his palm. Today next year is your death day. David was moved, and slapped Long Xiao's head with a palm. Everyone was shocked when they saw that David ignored the rules and really wanted to kill Long Xiao. Stop! Seeing this, Guo Wei shouted angrily, and then his figure disappeared in a flash, and the terrifying aura pressed towards David. Dare to ignore the rules of the alliance, damn! Guo Wei saw that David was really going to kill Long Xiao, so he used this as an excuse to get rid of David. David looked at Guo Wei, his eyes cold and said, I think it's you who damn. Boom! David did not show weakness, and slammed Guo Wei with a punch. The fists were pressed together, and the whole earth was shaking. Guo Wei only felt a huge force coming, and his body couldn't help but step back, and the tiger's mouth was even faintly numb. And David's body flew out instantly, and Long Xiao in his hand was thrown to the ground. Long Xiao was on the ground, desperately crawling towards Guo Wei. He didn't want to die. A bloodstain appeared on the place where Long Xiao had climbed. At this time, Long Xiao was already very embarrassed, and there was no place where he looked like the eldest young master of the Long family. "Did I say I'll let you go? I'll let you die, and no one can stop you." Looking at Long Xiao who kept crawling towards Guo Wei, David's eyes narrowed, and then he slapped Long Xiao with his palm. This palm contains all the anger in David's heart during this period of time. The anger of his own mother being imprisoned for 20 years. Sonia was caught as a guinea pig's anger. These anger have been simmering in David's heart, and at this moment he is about to explode. Shuzi is rude and dares to commit murder in front of me. Guo Wei was so angry that, as the director of the alliance, David ignored him. After all, Guo Wei also slapped it, and the two collided again in an instant. David's body retreated again and again, while Guo Wei's body flickered, then he picked up Long Xiao and threw it lightly in front of Long Jingguo. "Xiao!" Long Jingguo hurriedly caught Long Xiao. Looking at his son's miserable appearance, Long Jingguo's face was full of anger. "Patriarch, let's take the eldest young master back for treatment as soon as possible." Long Xingxiu looked at Long Xiao like that, and his heart blossomed with joy, but he said with a very anxious expression on his face, "Go." Long Jingguo glared at David fiercely, hugged Long Xiao for a flash, and walked out of the venue directly. Seeing that Long Jingguo took Long Xiao away, David glared at Guo Wei. "Long Xiao is gone, then you will die on his behalf." David's voice was not loud, but everyone could hear it clearly. David is openly following Guo Wei and clamoring for it. Isn't this the longevity star who always eats arsenic and thinks that he has a long life? Guo Wei listened and smiled coldly. "Boy, you are too crazy. Do you think that after defeating Long Xiao, you are invincible in the world? I don't know if it is invincible in the world, but what I know is that you must die today. If you dare to catch my girlfriend, I will not let you go." After David finished speaking, a monstrous killing intent erupted from his body, the endless killing aura began to permeate, and David's eyes became scarlet. Chapter 1075. Feeling the killing intent on David's body, Guo Wei didn't dare to neglect. A faint white light glowed on his body, and gritted his teeth. "You have been provoking me again and again, I won't kill you today, how can I convince the public in the future?" David ignored Guo Wei. The power of the dragon was surrounded by his fists, and a deafening dragon roar sounded. David's aura soared rapidly. The body shining with golden light burst out with infinite power. Bang bang bang! David threw 3 punches in a row, and with each punch, a golden dragon flashed, the wind whistled, and the void trembled. Court death! Seeing this, Guo Wei suddenly threw his fists to counteract it. Every punch of Guo Wei was like a fast cannonball, smashing hard on David's fist. Rumbling! There was an explosion, the sky and the earth cracked, the road roared, and the endless air waves directly overturned many people in the stands to the ground. The peak of Wuzong, after all, is the peak of Wuzong. Long Xiao condoned the strength to be infinitely close to the peak of Wuzong, but compared with Guo Wei, his strength is still poor. David gritted his teeth, the spiritual power on his body seemed to be free of money, and he punched out one punch at a time, and a dragon roar resounded through the sky, shaking everyone's hearts. Guo Wei frowned, the energy in his hand was constantly waving, and soon, cold sweat appeared on Guo Wei's forehead. On the other hand, David, the whole person is almost crazy. A golden dragon hovers above David's head, and every punch he throws, there is a dragon roar. However, at this time, David's golden light became more and more dim, and the dragon's roar was no longer deafening. Soon, after throwing a dozen punches, the golden dragon hovering above David's head disappeared. The divine dragon's power was exhausted even in David's life-threatening consumption, and the spiritual power in David's dantian had dried up. Lianzhan Longxiao and Guo Wei, even if David has more spiritual power, it is difficult to support. However, Guo Wei's body was shaking at this time, and his physical strength was obviously exhausted. What? After David exhausted the last trace of spiritual energy in his body, he threw a punch. The body was finally unable to support it, and he half-kneeled on the ground at once, and the cold sweat on his forehead fell like rain. Guo Wei was directly repelled by this punch, his face turned pale, and he was panting heavily. Guo Wei's face was grim at this moment, and his eyes were full of killing intent. He can't wait to slap David to death now, but the energy in his body is almost exhausted at this time. This David is too strong. Everyone looked at David in shock. Fighting against Long Xiao and Guo Wei by himself, he was able to forcefully exhaust the energy in Guo Wei's body. Go to H3LL. David's eyes were red, and then he was like a bull, rampaging at Guo Wei. Without spiritual power, David relies on this powerful body to fight against Guo Wei. Even if he bites with his teeth, he will avenge Sonia. Seeing David rushing over like crazy, Guo Wei gritted his teeth, raised the last bit of strength, and slapped David on the shoulder. Click! With a crisp bone-cracking sound, David's shoulder was directly smashed, but David did not stop, but slammed his head into Guo Wei's head. This savage and lifeless style of play made everyone's heart tremble. Guo Wei's head was instantly smashed into blood, and he looked very scary with blood all over his face. After wiping the blood on his head, Guo Wei was instantly furious. I kill you! Guo Wei roared. As the director of the alliance, everyone respected him. How could he have been so humiliated? And now David actually made him embarrassed in front of so many people. And let him fight with David like a reckless man. I'm going to kill you too. David's eyes widened in anger. At this moment, he had already made a desperate plan. Guo Wei suddenly bit the tip of his tongue, a burst of blood shot out, and then the breath in Guo Wei's body began to skyrocket. Chapter 1076. Damn it, is Guo Wei crazy? It actually burns blood. This David is too awesome, forcing Guo Wei to burn his blood. It seems that David has a lot of bad luck today. Everyone looked at the scene in shock. David abruptly forced a strong man at the peak of Wuzong to burn his blood. Stop! At this time, a terrifying strong wind hit, directly separating Guo Wei and David. Zhu Zishan looked at the two coldly. He didn't want to lose a director for this. You step back. Zhu Zishan looked at Guo Wei and said. Leader, this David is provoking the prestige of the Martial Arts Alliance, and he must not be spared. Guo Wei said angrily. I'll handle this matter, you step back. Zhu Zishan intensified his tone, and seeing this, Guo Wei put away his breath and retreated. Zhu Zishan looked at David. David, you are very strong and talented, but unfortunately you are too arrogant. If you can endure humiliation and burden, maybe in a few years, I will not be your opponent, but unfortunately you are too young. I don't know the truth that Mu Xiu will be destroyed by Lin Feng. Bearing humiliation. David smiled coldly. I tolerate your numbness. I want to endure it. Will you let me endure it? You spy on the treasures on my body and take them by force. You sent someone to take my girlfriend and put her in the dungeon. If I endure it, I'm not a Fuking man anymore, so I will fight with your martial arts alliance to the end. David said through gritted teeth. Everyone was shocked and looked at David in disbelief. None of them thought that David would even dare to insult Zhu Zishan. But what David said was that Zhu Zishan spied on David's treasures and took away his girlfriend. If it was true, it would be too sinister. After all, Zhu Zishan is the leader of the Martial Arts Alliance. He is the one who presides over the order of the entire Kyoto martial arts world. Any sect family can do anything to get the treasure on David's body, but Zhu Zishan can't. Zhu Zishan's face became very ugly, and his brows were tightly twisted together. David, I now announce that you are ignoring the rules of the Alliance and blatantly violating the order of the Alliance, so you will be arrested and taken into custody. As soon as Zhu Zishan's voice fell, the 4 law enforcement elders of the Martial Arts Alliance instantly surrounded David. I'm not a member of your Martial Arts Alliance, so why should I follow your so-called rules? If Long Xiao uses poison to kill me, it's in compliance with the rules. If I kill him, it's against the rules. What the H3LL are these rules? Since I dare to come today, I'm not afraid of your shady secrets. Your Martial Arts Alliance has always been claiming to be famous and upright, but in fact, you are not even as good as those evil cultivators, all of them are robbers. David was upright, without the slightest fear on his face. It's useless to say anything now. Zhu Zishan's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he ordered, "Take him away." The 4 law enforcement elders were about to attack David, but they saw Zhao Wuji, Zhao Liguo, Dong Jiahao and the others rushed over, all standing behind David. I wish the Alliance leader, Mr. Chen is the instructor of our law enforcement pavilion, you can't just take it away. Zhao Wuji said with a cold expression. I don't care who he is. Since he violates the rules of the Alliance, I will take care of him. If you are talking too much, believe it or not, I will take you with me. Zhu Zishan gave Zhao Wuji a cold look and said. You. Zhao Waoqi trembled angrily, aren't you afraid that I will report to Mr. Shi? How can you report to Mr. Shi? I said, this matter is up to me. Zhu Zishan's eyes were full of coldness, go away. Suddenly, a rolling word burst out, and Zhao Waoqi's body shook. He stepped back a few steps, and blood began to flow out of his ears. Chapter 1077. The strength of Zhao Wuji and Zhu Zishan is incomparable, and the two are no longer from the same world. Is your martial arts alliance so shameless? Dong Jiahao said with a cold snort. Zhu Zishan looked at Dong Jiahao for a moment. Dong Jiahao, it's none of your business here, you'd better get out. If you annoy me, let alone 2 Wuzong peaks to protect you, even if there are 10, I can easily want your dog. Life. You. Dong Jiahao was furious, and his eyes were full of anger. Master. At this time, the 2 Dong family's Wuzong Peak powerhouses directly pulled Dong Jiahao. They know that with the strength of the 2 of them, there is no way to fight against Zhu Zishan, not to mention that there are 4 law enforcement elders from the Martial Arts Alliance. Brother Dong, thank you, please step back, I don't want you to be hurt because of me. David also knew that his strength was not enough to compete with the Martial Arts Alliance. Dong Jiahao was dragged down by 2 subordinates. You go down too. David turned around and looked at Zhao Liguo and Bai Ziashan. Mr. Chen. Zhao Liguo and Bai Ziashan were reluctant to go down, after all, they are now tied with David. Brother Chen, we fought with them. I don't believe that in front of so many people, the Martial Arts Alliance dares to kill us all. Zhao Chuang said without fear. But just after Zhao Chuang finished speaking, I saw Zhu Zishan waved his hand, and Zhao Chuang's body flew out. Chuanger. Zhao Liguo hurried forward and helped Zhao Chuang up. David gritted his teeth, with a grim look on his face, the person you want to deal with is me, if you have the ability, do it to me. David, fighting with the Martial Arts Alliance, you are still too young, and these people behind you still want to fight with me? I only need a word, and there are people on the scene who will kill them for me. You obediently catch yourself, don't make a fearless struggle. Zhu Zishan said to David proudly. I'll bind your mother. David had already put his life and death aside for a long time, and today, regardless of his life or death, he will have a good time. After he finished speaking, he slapped the mountain of blessing with one palm. Zhu Zishan frowned, his figure disappeared in a flash, and he returned directly to the stand. Arrest him. Zhu Zishan would not follow David to do it in person. So many people watched, if he and David did it themselves, it would appear that he was too unidentified. When the 4 law enforcement elders heard it, they immediately moved towards David. 4 invisible shackles came to suppress David. In an instant, David's limbs were bound, making David unable to move. David's eyes were wide open, the golden light on his body began to flicker, and some of the dragon's power was restored. At this moment, David burst out. "What?" David roared, gritted his teeth, resisted desperately, trying to break free from the shackles. But these 4 law enforcement elders are all at the peak of Wuzong. They only obey the leader of the alliance, and even Guo Wei has no right to order them. David struggled frantically, and when the 4 law enforcement elders saw this, they glanced at each other. An array of light instantly came out of the hands of the 4. This light is like an electric current, flowing down the shackles to David's body. David's body was shaking violently, and blood shot out from David's body. Boom! David's body couldn't bear it and fell to the ground with a bang. "Humph, I'm not self-sufficient." Looking at David who fell to the ground, Zhu Zishan snorted coldly. Just when the 4 law enforcement elders wanted to step forward and take David away, they were surprised to find that David stood up slowly. Between David's eyebrows, there was a bright red, burning like a flame. Chapter 1078. The golden light enveloped David's body again, and pieces of scales were born, covering David's body. Even David's eyes could see the beating flames. This David is actually burning blood, he is struggling to the death. Such talent is going to be ruined here today. Burning blood essence is tantamount to killing a chicken and taking an egg. It's useless, I have never heard of it, who can escape the purgatory shackles of the law enforcement elders. Everyone was talking about it, and some felt sorry for David. After all, it is not easy for a genius to appear in the martial arts world, and David is a genius, but David's temperament is destined for him to not go far. Don't struggle anymore, if you keep struggling, you'll just die on the spot. Zhu Zishan said coldly. David gritted his teeth, his scarlet eyes looked at Zhu Zishan, and the golden light from his body continued to skyrocket. "What?" David roared, and then a golden dragon rose into the sky in his body. In an instant, David exudes an unprecedented aura that no one has ever felt before. It was like emanating from the 9 Serenity H3LL, with a strong smell of death in the breath. Everyone was startled by this breath and trembled all over. When the 4 law enforcement elders saw this, all of their blue veins burst out, and the steady stream of oppressive force was pressing towards David. The blood in David's body was burning, and the golden light on his body soared, like the sun falling from the sky. "Kill him!" When Zhu Zishan saw this, the muscles in the corners of his eyes twitched, and he ordered loudly. The 4 law enforcement elders nodded, and all of them condensed their soul-stirring power in an instant. The 4 forces combined together, and a destructive aura swept the entire venue. Rumbling! The sky trembled, the sun and the moon dimmed. No one can survive under the cooperation of 4 law enforcement elders. A force that ripped apart time and space slammed into David ruthlessly. At this moment, David was still bound, and he could only watch helplessly as this force was about to penetrate his body, but there was nothing he could do. He can't break free from this invisible shackle. The 4 law enforcement elders of the Dignified Martial Arts Alliance joined forces to deal with a young man. "Do you have any shame?" With an angry shout, a light flashed from the sky. The power that ripped apart time and space was shredded in an instant, and the scene instantly returned to calm. Everyone was startled and looked around in a hurry, and found that in the distance, 4 figures were getting closer and closer. Even if they were far apart, everyone could feel the terrifying aura on the 4 of them. The invisible shackles that controlled David also disappeared instantly, and the faces of the 4 law enforcement elders became extremely ugly. 4 wicked men in the Valley of the Wicked. I don't know who shouted, and the scene suddenly exclaimed. Everyone put their hearts in their throats. These 4 evil people are moody. If one is unhappy, now these people may be unlucky. Zhu Zishan's complexion changed and changed, looking at the 4 villains from far and near. he hurriedly whispered a few words in Guo Wei's ear. Guo Wei nodded, and one of them disappeared. David slowly raised his head and looked at the four who saved him. I saw the bodies of the four people floated down, and each of them looked very distinctive. One of the old men with a bald head but a grey beard looked at David, who was lying on the ground. With a slight wave of his body, a gentle force wrapped David, and then the injuries on David's body were visible to the naked eye. Speed recovery. Mr. Chen. At this time, Zhao Wuji, Zhao Liguo, and the others rushed up and helped David up. Thank you to the four seniors for helping us. David bowed slightly towards the four and said. You don't need to thank us, we are also entrusted by others, but you dare to provoke the Martial Arts Alliance in Kyoto at a young age, you are really a bit daring. The grey-bearded old man said. Chapter 1079. Seeing that these four people were entrusted, David fell into deep thought, who would entrust them to come over? Gate Master Zhao, who are these four old men? David asked Zhao Wuji. Mr. Chen, these four people are the four villains in the Valley of the Wicked. The one who just talked to you is Ding Buer, the one with long hair next to him is Ding Buer, the fatter one is Ding Buzan, and the thinnest is Ding Buer. No 4. Zhao Waoqi followed David to introduce in a low voice. The four great evils, the four great evils. David frowned slightly. He seemed to have heard of these people. Suddenly, David remembered that he had heard the names of the four wicked men from Long Wuokao. Wu Meyer was picked up by the four villains at the time, and later Ding Buzan gave it to Long Wu to raise her. In this way, it is very likely that these four evil people were entrusted by Long Wu, but David just didn't understand how Long Wu knew these people. Ding is not big, is it too much for you to meddle in the affairs of our Kyoto Martial Arts Alliance at will? Zhu Zishan took the stage and asked with a cold expression. It's too much for you to be paralyzed, isn't it too much for you guys to bully a child? Don't fucking drag me for nothing. Today we're here to take him there. If you don't agree, we'll make a gesture. Ding didn't stop yelling, and Zhu Zishan's face was flushed. Hearing Ding Dao's words, David suddenly wanted to laugh. He didn't expect these four villains to speak so frankly when they opened their mouths. But David likes this kind of temperament. It seems that these four people are called the four evil people, and it is not without reason. You, Zhu Zishan's face was flushed, and he pointed at Ding Dao. Do you guys want to challenge the entire martial arts world? Ding didn't sigh, and then said coldly, you are shameless, your Kyoto Martial Arts Alliance, you can't even represent the entire Kyoto martial arts family, you still want to represent the entire martial arts world, you don't either. Take a piss on yourself. Brother, this guy probably can't even pee. You forgot that he practiced evil arts and ruined his ability to be a man. Ding Buer said jokingly. Second brother, you are talking about the sunflower collection, right? You see Zhu Zishan has a beard on his mouth, so it must not be a sunflower collection. Ding Buzan looked at Zhu Zishan, and suddenly smiled sullenly, he must have practiced. Shut up for me. Zhu Zishan was in a hurry. No one knew about his practice of evil, and neither did the four evil men, but he knew that the other party was talking nonsense, but this deeply hurt Zhu Zishan's nerves. Ha ha ha, David couldn't help laughing when he heard a few people's words. Seeing that Zhu Zishan's face was extremely cold, he was clenching his teeth. Zhu Zishan, you can't kill me today, but sooner or later I will kill you, and you guys. David looked at Zhu Zishan coldly, and then turned his attention to the four elders of law enforcement. The four law enforcement elders did not care about David's threat at all. Although David showed his strength, he was already very strong at this age, but the stronger his strength, the more difficult it would be to break through. I am afraid that after 10 or 8 years, David may not necessarily be their four opponents, and whether David can live that long is unknown. I'm waiting for you, but I just don't know if your beloved can wait until the day you kill me. Zhu Zishan's eyes narrowed slightly, and he faintly threatened. If you dare to hurt Sonia, I will destroy you all over the place. Bloodthirsty killing intent erupted from David. Young man, it's best not to talk big until you have no strength. The four of us can save you today, but it doesn't mean that we will save you forever. Be smart. Ding didn't finish speaking, turned around and walked outside the venue. Chapter 1080. No one dared to stop the four evil men going out. And David was supported by Zhao Chuang, and everyone walked out. Zhu Zishan watched David leave, and the killing intent in his eyes became stronger and stronger. Everyone walked out of the venue, and many people who were not qualified to enter the venue were waiting outside, and the guy who placed a bet on David and Long Xia ran over happily at this time, and exchanged money for these people who bet on David's victory. This time, this guy made a lot of money, and many people overwhelmed Long Xiao, and now all the money has gone into his banker's pocket. Young man, you can do it yourself, we should go, next time we see you in danger, we won't care, this time it's just a favor. Ding didn't finish speaking, and took the other three to prepare to leave. Thank you four seniors, great kindness, I will remember it. David clasped his fists towards the four villains and said. Just when Ding was not about to take the others away, he suddenly found the Taipei ring on David's hand, who was clasping his fists. Ding Dao's eyes showed a look of astonishment, but it was only fleeting. Come with me, I have something to ask you. Ding Dao waved to David. David was very surprised, but he still followed Ding Dao to the side. When David followed Ding Dao to the hidden place, Ding Dao suddenly turned around and knelt down towards David. Senior. David hurriedly stepped forward to help Ding Buobu. He didn't understand what Ding Buobu was doing. But no matter how hard David tried, Ding didn't move at all. My subordinate Ding is not big, I will meet the Lord of the Dragon Sect. Ding Dao said respectfully. When David heard this, his whole body banged, and his head went blank. Heavenly Dragon Palace Lord? Could it be that this Valley of the Wicked is also a hall of the Dragon Sect? This made David too surprised. You must know that the strength of this villain valley is very strong. I am afraid that these four villains have already reached the realm of Marquis. Otherwise, how can they not be afraid of the Kyoto Martial Arts Alliance? But such a powerful person could actually be a member of the Dragon Sect? How terrifying is this Dragon Palace? What are the strengths of the other halls? It took a long time for David to wake up from the shock. Senior, how did you join the Dragon Sect? Who was the previous sect master? David asked urgently. Now that he knew that the Heavenly Dragon Ring was given to his mother by his father, and now that his mother gave it to him, the previous hall master of the Heavenly Dragon Palace must be his father. But who knows? Ding Boss shook his head. Palace Master, you can just call me Ding, I can't stand the word senior, I don't know who the previous Palace Master of Dragon Sect is, we only recognize the Heavenly Dragon Ring. As for how we joined the Dragon Sect, it's a long story. Boss Ding followed David about what happened more than 20 years ago. Back then, the Valley of the Wicked was besieged by many aristocratic families in the martial arts world, and everyone in the Valley of the Wicked was about to die. Just then, a mysterious man saves them. Repel the attacks of hundreds of martial arts masters with one's own strength. At that time, the Valley of the Wicked became a hall of the Dragon Sect, and Ding Dabo had been waiting for the appearance of the Taipei Ring. Is that mysterious man my father? David muttered to himself. At this moment, David actually had some expectations in his heart. He really wanted to know the identity of his father, and also wanted to know where the other halls of the Dragon Sect were and what kind of strength they would be. Along the way, David found that at every stage, when he was in difficulty, he could encounter a hall of the Dragon Sect. Lin Tianhu in Horondel, Chifeng in the provincial capital, Shadowless Villa in Kyoto, and now the Valley of the Wicked.